give you the list of credits that this woman has garnered in the business. But if you know the music of Marvin Gaye, if you know the music of Barry White, if you know the music of Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Joe Cocker, I mean, the list goes on. And if you've ever listened to their music, there's always this voice in the background that you hear. They are the true singers. That's right, I said it. They are the true vocal artists. Yeah. And there was a documentary not too long ago called 20 Feet from Stardom. This woman I'm about to announce her name should have been on that documentary because she knew everybody that was in the documentary, but she is the unsung hero for all the background singers in not just this country and beyond. So I have the delight, I have the pleasure, and I am honored to present the phenomenal, the talented, the extraordinary Cydney Davis. Hey, Cydney.
How you doing, Kelly?
I am doing fantastic, and I want to thank you for joining us. So as you know, this is Suicide Prevention Week, and our campaign is very focused on bringing art, music, movement as a healing medium to this very troubling topic. And I had to make sure that I got you, Cydney, because you have been in the business for, well, a while. And you're
40 years, honey.
Wow, 40 years. So, just a little bit of, I gave you some background with Cydney, but Cydney, you have these amazing stories because not only does she use her vocal arts to convey messages, she's also a writer. She's also an actress. She's also an artist herself. You know, I went to her apartment one day. I said, wait a minute, what are you doing there? She's just an all-around creative person. And I wanted to especially have her on to talk about how one can move through emotional crisis when you're going through times of pain. And Cydney, if you can just shed some light, some of your past experiences, how you use art as healing.
You know, I am an artist, and like you said, several different areas. You know, I sing, I express myself through song, through my voice. And when you sing, it's like the energy and the synergy of the sound waves just go all through your body and your soul and your mind. So I think that just being able to sing and feeling confident and free to sing has always been a beautiful tool to express whatever emotions that I'm going through, whether it's deep sadness or anger. And grief has so many mixtures of emotions, and I've been through a plethora of grief in the last couple of decades of my life. Also, as an actress, you get a chance to kind of put on like a garment of a character and express yourself maybe in a way that's not so much your own personality, but it's in there. You can do it. I think that's another way to express through feelings that you're actually going through in your real life. As a writer, and you know this as a writer, oh my goodness, all the stories that we've heard, all the stories that we conjure, we can put them on paper, and a character that is unknown and unshaped, we shape in them, and they have a life and they have a name and there's a story. And it's writing was a wonderful tool to help pull me up from, I think, my darkest hour. So in putting all those things together, it applies to my emotions. For example, as a singer, in order to do it professionally, if I have to get up in front of a crowd, I have to put the mask on in order to say, hey, I'm the life of the party, because that's my job. That's what I'm getting paid for. But during times in my life where I was suffering great loss, and I think probably the greatest loss was my niece. And I think when you're a parent or you're an auntie or an uncle, you expect children and your nieces and nephews, you always expect them to outlive you. You even conjure up and think in your mind as you age, what things you might leave to this younger generation. And my niece Tia, she was the first baby that I ever held in my arms. I was like 11 years old, and my sister Shirley put this beautiful child in my arms, and I held her and I looked at her and I saw these gorgeous eyes, and I melted, and then I was trusted. So I always had a connection with Tia. I had many other nieces and nephews, but my connection with Tia was very close from the time she was a baby. And she was my niece that when I was on tour with Marvin Gaye, she came with my mom and my sisters, and she won Marvin Gaye's heart. Marvin Gaye was writing my niece Tia so many autograph pictures. I hadn't even gotten an autograph picture from Marvin Gaye. I was working with, but Tia, oh, and I need one for my friend down the street. And Marvin was just writing. I said, Tia walked away about 6 autographed pictures of Marvin Gaye. I don't know where they ended up, but and as she grew up and started having children, she was the one that would get on my case and call me up. And she said, "Now, Aunt Wayne," well, my name is Cydney Wayne Davis, y'all, but my niece called me Aunt Wayne. She said, "Now, Aunt Wayne, now I know you out there in California. I know you out there in Hollywood and everything, and I know you with all these big time stars, but you have a family here in West Virginia. And Aunt Wayne, I want you to come. You need to come and visit your family." She said, "I want you to watch my children grow up." And that was so prophetic. And Tia was the one that could always woo me to come back home and spend more time with my family. And I did watch her children grow up. And a horrible tragedy happened in 2004. Tia was in her mid 30s. Her children were mostly grown, 4 children, and there was an altercation with a young man who was dating her youngest daughter. And you know how sometimes relationships come in, and sometimes a young man will think he owns that person. Well, the altercation got so bad, Tia stood up for her daughter, and he, in anger, shot her and killed her. And that, I think, was like the worst. It was the worst event that happened in our entire family, because Tia was just so loved. She was an aunt herself, and her nieces, my great nieces and nephews, they loved her. Her children let her, and then now she has grandchildren who never knew her. And when that happened, the sadness, it took me to depths that were unknown to me. And I think for that the fact that she was murdered, that she was taken, and in my community here in Inglewood, I see so many people that walk around with T-shirts of a loved one who's passed on, and so often, if you ask them how did they pass, so often they were taken, they were murdered. Something that's so unnatural. And myself, I'm usually a very upbeat person, and I'm the kind of gal that life of the party, that's how people usually know me. But that event took me into an unknown area of depression. And I was still able to put on a bit of a face and rise up and do a job, sing at a wedding reception or do a recording session. I could go and teach one of my vocal students during that time. But then there were periods of time during the day that were just so dark. And it was during that time that it was even hard to pray, because I had not only the pain of the loss, but I also had the anger and the unforgiveness of this young man. And God did so many wonderful things to open up my eyes. And one of them, he opened up a door to a character that I began writing. And the character really was kind of like a prototype of my superhero powers, in ministry. And her name was Reverend Charlie, preacher lady. And that it was my first screenplay. It's still like a work in progress, because the Reverend Charlie series has gotten so big in my mind. And Kelly, we've even done a few readings of some of my pages. But during that time in its infancy, it it was growing. I had started Reverend Charlie when Tia was still alive, and I gave her my first few pages, and she would read it, and she would say, "Auntie, when are you going to finish that book? I want to read this book." And I said, "Well, I don't know if it's a book or if it's a screenplay. I don't know what it is." But I was still developing my characters. And after Tia died, it laid for a while, and then it resurrected because because I kept hearing her voice in my head. When are you going to finish that? And so the story kind of brought me back through my grief, and writing it pulled me up out of it. And so I am grateful for my artistic talents. Another thing, singing. I was on a gig singing, and I was doing fine. And then the saxophone player was taking a solo. And in his solo, I thought of Tia. And oh my goodness, all these tears started coming up. And then the band leader looked at me like I was next to keep singing. And I had like the biggest, like, I don't even know what you call that, like a lump where you want to cry, but you can't because you've been told professionally, okay, it's your turn to sing. And whatever, it was some jazz song, and I blurted it out and I sang. And the note had a character that was mixed with my grief and mixed with my pain, but I was pushing it through my body and just using technique to push it through. And afterwards, the saxophone player, he said, "Girl," he said, "you must eat and breathe Carmen McRae because you sound just like her." Now, no one had ever told me that in my life because I didn't have that type of voice. But through crying like every day for a year, it changed my voice. Pushing through the pain, sculpted and changed my being and my spirit. So I want to say this to people that are going through grief or are going through depression and they feel like there's just no hope. My prayer is that those creative gifts would be your rope. So grab hold onto them. And I believe that those creative gifts are connected to God because He is our creator. So whatever your belief is on God, you have a rope, grab it and pull up.
Thank you for sharing, Cydney, and I'm glad that you're allowing the space for those who are not faith-based, that art, music, and movement, they're universal, and it really doesn't have in too much to do with your faith. It certainly can help support it if you so choose, but that's the thing about accessing your inside creativity and expression to move through those challenges. And you have a business called Cydney's Vocal Arts Studio, where
Well,
you,
the Cydney Wayne Davis Vocal Arts Studio.
okay, and can you, Venus, make sure you put it just like that in our comment section? And if you could just speak a little bit about some of the clients who you have, all ranges of people who actually are who actually sing sing for their supper, and
Yes,
those who
yes.
just want to just sing at the table.
Well, I work with all ages from 4-year-old to 97 or older. And from beginners to professional recording artists. I've worked with several uh, centers for like young people and church groups to work with the young people. And but as far as artists that are in the industry, I had a wonderful opportunity to vocal coach Florence LaRue, who's a member of the Fifth Dimension, which is a Grammy Award-winning group. And I had Florence had actually hired me to take her place to sing lead as a member of the Fifth Dimension. And then afterwards, when she found out that I was a vocal coach, she came to me a few times and, she's, "Oh, Cydney, you're good." She learned a few things. I also worked with jazz artist Norman Brown as a vocal coach because he also played saxophone, but he also sings. I mean, yeah, he sings very well. I'm sorry, he plays guitar, my bad. Norman plays guitar and he sings. And also with the cast, some of the members of the cast of Lion King from the movie, Nikita Kalami, who played young Nala, and I worked with two of the girls who played young Nala at the Pantages Theater, and Dina Ray, who's the hook artist with Eminem. She on his first four credited CDs. Dina Ray, that's my girl, and she was signed with Universal Motown. So, like I said, I work with beginners to professional recording artists. Had a wonderful group of young ladies called Jade that were really hot in the '90s, and Joy Marshall, who's still singing solo, and a wonderful time working with her, who's with Jade. But so, like I said, but I work with beginners to professional recording artists. I have another wonderful young lady named Chelsea DeBlasi, and I've worked with her father, who's worked with many, credited acts in the business. She's another up and coming. Another wonderful young lady named, she goes by name Posey Fourier. I worked with her dad when I was with the Fifth Dimension, another up and coming artist. These are singer songwriters who are really young women who are telling their stories and telling their truth through their music. I also worked with my former pastor's daughter. She goes by the name Punky G, and she's a gospel artist. And you met Punky, and she raps and she sings. So I feel gifted to work with some established artists, but I also feel great to pour into those that are up and coming that you will be hearing about. And working with myself, the renewed, remodeled Cydney Wayne Davis as an artist. I've worked with all these wonderful people, but I've learned from Marvin Gaye. I've learned from Barry White. I've learned from Ray Charles. I've learned, Diana Ross recorded one of my songs. I've learned from these artists. Meryl McCoo and Billy Davis Jr., I've been with them over 20 years, and I learn from them every day how to stay in the game. And I think the other thing that I've learned from Marilyn and Billy is to be your professional self, but you can also maintain your faith in who you are, and that identity. And I identify as a Christian. I don't beat people over the head with it, but I try to have an open heart and tolerant of everyone's beliefs and not judgmental in that way. But I like to also be transparent because I'm a praying woman. And I can't tell you how many stages I've been on, and musicians and other backup singers and tech people that have come to me because they've seen that light in me and said, hey, you know what? Can you pray for me about this, this, and this? When I was with Joe Cocker, one of the guys that drove the truck, he was on the crew, and they work a whole different schedule than the artists and the people in the band. They don't get a lot of sleep, but they work really hard. And he had to do the overnight driving, like to the next city. And he came to me and he told me how scared he was and that he fell asleep the last trip. And he said, would you pray for me? And I prayed for him. And anytime that guy needed prayer about something, he would come to me. He said, your prayer worked because I stayed awake the whole time. And I was like, well, praise God. And so I have availed myself in the industry to be that person that people have confided in. And that in itself is a ministry. And so I don't take it lightly. And, but I feel like I have to be myself and I have to trust God and I have to reflect what God has put in me.
Well, I certainly have appreciate your spaces, and I know we had done a play together. Gosh, Cydney, I think it's been over 10 years now that I think about it. Gosh, it's
It has.
2020.
That was
Gosh,
2009. So it has
yes.
been.
Yeah, we have. And your gift of song touched me. And especially when you're doing theater and, staying in the moment, I never had to give myself a substitution with you on that stage because all you had to do was stroke my hair and sing that song. And I was just putty and I know, it just brought it up. So you're a testament to your talent. I can certainly uh, say that. And with your vocal arts studio, again, using this medium of expression and being able to, sing, is there for someone that says, I kind of been interested in singing, but I have a horrible voice, but I kind of want to, and I don't know what it's going to sound like. Do you have those kinds of people, and how do you navigate that space with them?
No, that's a really good question, Kelly. Yes, I do get people that inquire about that. Some people are very focused. They sing already and they know what they want. Then you have people that just they watch a lot. There's a lot of these shows, American Idol and The Voice and so forth that have singers competing. I'm not really a fan of that forum of singers competing with one another, because for me, you just have to work together and get to know each other and support each other. So with those that are just curious about it, what I think, and I've also been asked the question, can you teach anybody to sing? All right. Can I teach anybody to sing? I can teach anyone what I know about singing. Now, in order to be able to adapt to it, there's something that you have to have innately, and that's a connection from the brain to the inner ear, and that's pitch. You have to have an ear for pitch and tone. Those are those frequencies that cause a note to be in tune with music or out of tune. And so I tell my young students, I basically, and so this is for anybody, there's two basic languages when you're dealing with sounds that are coming out of this body. There's the language of noise, and there's the language of music. And anybody can make noise. You can make a joyful noise. You can make a noise of triumph. You can make a noise. Any kind of sound is a noise that's coming out of you. But for it to be music, it has to have a certain frequency. It has to have a certain sound and a tone that we can qualify and say, yes, that is music. And if a person can follow just the rudiment, basic alphabet of our musical language, which is our major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. If you can sing within your own range, just that basic little up and down staircase scale that is the major scale, then I can work with you. If it's really difficult for you to hear those basic steps, and if you have what you call, if you're tone deaf, meaning that connection with your inner ear and the brain just isn't really firing a signal yet, I wouldn't say it would be best to work with me, but you may want to just work on ear training. And there are other schools of thought that do that. But I can work with anybody that can at least in somewhat relative pitch sing the major scale. Because then it's about understanding how this voice works. And I have several techniques. One of the things that I have all my students do is a affirmation about your voice, so that we're clear that we're working on musicianship. So the first one is, my voice is an instrument, and I am a vocal musician. I start with that foundation, because then it's more like any instrument that a young person picks up and they have to learn it to play if they're going to be in their either school band. Think of your voice that way. It's an instrument. It's inside of your body. So there's ways that we learn it that are a little unique to instruments outside of your body.
Thank you, Cydney. And we're almost getting close to time. So I do want you to share one of Cydney has so many stories and wonderful stories, and they're true. And one of the things I love about her stories, it certainly has given me inspiration. And for her to be in the music business for the amount of years she said, 40 years, I think you said, Cydney, the ups and downs of the business, and how Venus has this wonderful saying she likes to say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Well, you have a story, your Marvin Gaye story, and why I would like for you to share it in the context of Suicide Prevention Week.
Yes.
And all of that is, artists, we often come to that moment in our crossroads where you go, should I be doing this? Nobody's paying attention. I'm working at McDonald's and also at night singing or doing this. And, what does it all mean? And I think that story for someone who's moving through moments may inspire them. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have a little bit of a song afterwards, but I just want you to share your Marvin Gaye story.
Okay. When I moved to Los Angeles, that's when the doors opened for me. And a friend of mine knew I was pursuing music, and they invited me, but they literally snuck me backstage to the Grammy Awards in 1983. So I was backstage. I was further than I was supposed to go. But however, I met someone who changed my life, and that was Marvin Gaye's daughter, Nona. She was wearing a white dress, and so was I. She had on cute little patent leather shoes, and so did I, but mine were high heels. So she came up to me. She says, "I like your dress." I said, "I like yours." She said, "What's your name?" We exchanged names, and um, and then she said, "Can I wear your shoes?" And I was like, "Oh," but I saw that Marvin was coming, and I wanted my chance to really meet him, but I couldn't resist this little girl, so I let her put my shoe on, and then she starts walking away from me, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So I stand to the side so I could look kind of sexy with my high heel. And I got on one flat shoe and one high heel. So she walks right up to Marvin and tugs on his jacket and says, "Hey daddy, look at me." And I thought, oh my goodness, that's his daughter. And and then he said, "Baby, you look cute. Where'd you get those shoes?" And she said, "Right over there, Daddy. That's my new friend. Her name is Cydney. Can she come with us?" That's when my life changed because his children. I became a volunteer babysitter for his two youngest children, Nona and little Frankie. They used to call him Bubby. And I was working at Target, and I would see different musicians coming in and out of his suite at the Ambassador Hotel, but I didn't know who they were. One guy played piano one day, and I sang, and he said, "Oh, you got a nice tone, you got a nice voice." And the lady that was sitting in the room, her name was Kitty Sears, and Kitty was Marvin's personal assistant. She didn't say anything, but she was in the room when I sang. And then sometime later, I was working at Target, got off that night, and I had every intention of just driving home, going to sleep. But in that moment, it was like a divine presence, an angel. I just believe it was God Himself took over the wheel of my car and began to drive it. And I'm driving towards Hollywood, and I don't know why. I'm turning down Wilshire Boulevard, and I don't know why. And I'm turning into the Ambassador Hotel, and I'm going, "What am I doing here?" And I'm questioning everything, and I'm saying, "I don't drop in on people. I don't know why I'm doing this." And I told myself, now if the kids aren't here, I'm going to leave because it's rude. Then I knock on the door, and this woman, Kitty Sears, answers the door, and she looks at me and she says, "Oh, Cydney, honey, the auditions aren't here. They're over at CBS. I can give you the address." And I said, "Auditions for what?" And she said, "For background singers." She said, "Marvin's getting ready to go out on a major tour, honey, after all these years." She said, "And I heard you singing with McKinley Jackson. That's Marvin's music director." I said, "Oh, I didn't know." She said, "Marvin's getting ready." And then Marvin walked in the room. And then he's like, "Oh, Cydney, the kids aren't here today. You could." And and then she said, "Marvin, hold on. Did you know that Cydney can sing?" And he looked at me and he said, "Baby, you can sing?" I said, "Yes, sir." And then he got on the phone and he called this guy, Harvey Fuqua, who he worked with Motown. And he said, "Harvey, I'm sending over a young lady. Her name is Cydney. I want you to audition her. And if she really can sing, if she's got good pitch, good tone, she can harmonize, sing with the other singers, then I want to hire her because she's good people."
Thank you, Cydney, for that. And sometimes those stories, just having stories of inspiration and by, my thing is you gotta keep moving forward. And I hear so many stories of people who just kept putting one foot in front of the other, seeking help, getting the resources that you need. Certainly with Suicide Prevention Week, Venus and I have been posting about resources and things that you can do, but it also is having that tenacity, having that moment where you continue to put that one foot in front of the other. So I want to thank you for sharing that. And we'll ask that we can kind of conclude here. I gave you my idea of something that you can sing. And by the way, Cydney doesn't have any musical rights to this particular song. We have to say that because this is Facebook. But Cydney, I'd like to turn it over to you and
Yeah.
have you give us a bit of music.
I'm going to sing one that it's a standard. Um, it's public domain, so it's okay. But I just think that this song resounds with people no matter what their faith is. Amazing sing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, oh, but now I am found. I was blind, oh, but now I see.
Thank you so much, Cydney Davis. And if you want to seek out Cydney, I think we have put all her information. Venus, am I correct on this particular?
Correct.
Okay, good. So we are going to conclude this particular section. Cydney, we're going to have Chad Bishop on tomorrow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we're going to continue this, just giving people moments to take a moment and experience something beautiful. And Cydney, you are beautiful. And I want to thank you for how much you have sowed into me and how much work we have done together. My life has been enriched by your gifts, by your presence, by your love and your care. And as we move through these exceptional times, I am so encouraged that we have wonderful, gifted songstress, artists like yourself who keep reminding us, take a moment to really explore something beautiful. So thank you.
And Kelly, you are beautiful. And go Kelly! Number 3, City Council, Oceanside. They need you. I love you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Venus, I guess that's our cue to end this. Yeah, so thank you, Facebook Live. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Just end it. We're good.
All right, Cydney, I think you can hear me. Okay. You know, I told this story when we hung up with this woman. Her name is Julia Pfister. When we first started doing Facebook Live, because, you know, it takes the young people like Venus to help us up. So when we ended the thing, I was going, you heard me go, is it off? How are we? Are we clear? What happened? You know? So now I'm very like, and then Venus was like, well, you know, Kelly, you can push mute and stop video, but I will handle it. And I'm like, okay, good. So that's why I have that deer in the headlights. So
I love it. No, bless the young people. Thank you, Venus.
No problem. We're good now. We're clear.
Okay, fantastic. So